face the current challenges of spatial distancing, online teaching and learning, an unpredictable future? How do we deal with our own helplessness and anxiety in the face of our own and others' isolation? And how do we as teachers take up these challenges, finding new ways of building connectivity and instilling trust in the children and parents of our schools? How do we build and maintain the power of community in the current situation that we find ourselves in? So Jones Lee will be talking about balancing personal rights and social responsibilities, balancing state requirements and civilian initiatives, and using digital media as a tool rather than a distraction. After Joan's talk, we will go into breakout sessions. These breakout sessions will be led by 5 of our very dear colleagues. Room 1 will be led by Sylvia Njagi. Sylvia Njagi is a founding teacher at the Nanyuki Waldorf Initiative. Room 2 will be led by James Olang. James Olang is the pedagogical leader at the Rudolf Steiner School in Bagadi. Room 3 will be led by Bruce Jackson. Bruce Jackson is the pedagogical leader, high school at the Nairobi Waldorf School. Room 4 will be led by Mary Mwaneki. Mary Mwaneki is a kindergarten teacher at the Nairobi Waldorf School, and also the lead person at the moment for the Kenya Waldorf School's kindergarten meetings. Room 5 will be led by Faith Wambua. Faith is also a founding teacher of the Woodlands Waldorf School. Now, how will you go into your breakout room? Our breakout rooms will be exactly 30 minutes. After Joan's talk, you will get a small notification indicating that it's time to go to the breakout rooms. For some of you, your machines might ask you to click on a button, join. So you will click on that to join the breakout room. After 30 minutes, you will leave your breakout room. On your left-hand top corner of your device, you will find the leave breakout room button, which is often bluish in color. And then that will bring you back to the main meeting. During the breakout room sessions, we'll have questions to discuss, but I will share those questions shortly before we go into the breakout rooms. Please allow me to recognize 2 individuals or 1 individual who you're not seeing on your screen now, without whose support this could not have been possible. This is Kali from Nanyuki Waldorf Initiative. Kali is offering our technical support. And if you have any technical issues, we can find a way to get Kali to help you or to assist you. So Kali, thank you so much for the technical support that you're providing today.
Very welcome.
So dear colleagues, so from wherever you are and from wherever you're joining us at, feel welcomed. We look forward to this talk that is being led by Joan Lee. Joan Lee, over to you.
Thank you, Victor, and welcome everybody. It's wonderful that we have this opportunity again to meet and to talk about this question of real encounters. And somehow it seems very audacious to even dare to talk about encounters when all we can see of each other are little buttons, little images, maybe our faces, or even just our names. And 75 of you have signed up. And I don't know many of you, and I'm talking about encounters and meetings and real encounters and real meetings. And it seems very, very audacious and almost out of place to do that. And yet, this is one of the things that we are particularly challenged with at the time, at this time, with the world crises that we experience. And as we've said, and as Victor, thank you, Victor, for the introduction, as he described, we wanted to look at these different topics of how do we face the current challenges of spatial distancing and social isolation and the online teaching and learning, where we are overwhelmed by having to do this all on a new platform, which is counterproductive, we would say, to what everything we've learned in Waldorf education. So how do we tackle this current situation, not step out of it, but affirm it, say yes to it, and take it on? So this is what we are going to try and do today. Perhaps those people who are not speaking now could put their mic off, just so that we can have quietness in the background. I would like to start with a verse by Rudolf Steiner, and this is, of course, inspired by Rudolf Steiner, as are the Waldorf schools and as are all the work that we're doing. And I think we have a particular opening at the moment, a particular possibility or an opportunity to really bring the spiritual science that Rudolf Steiner brought to us, with the challenge and the motivation of developing new capacities, new soul capacities, new spiritual awareness, that we can bring that into our present time as a tool to help us to deal with the present situation. I think there is an opening for that at the moment and a longing for that. So let's try to take this on today with this impulse that this talk and this gathering of us together is in order for us to really take up our spiritual heritage, our spiritual origin, and to bring that into this world, in this dire situation, in the dire need of our societies. So with that in mind, I would like to start with this verse. You probably all know it. The healthy social life is only found when, in the mirror of each human soul, the whole community finds its reflection. And when, in the community, the virtue of each one is living. This is called the social motto. And it shows that we as individuals need to participate in community life, build community, and reflect the whole community within ourselves, just as each community reflects each one of us within its wholeness. So once more, the healthy social life is only found when, in the mirror of each human soul, the whole community finds its reflection, and when, in the community, the virtue of each one is living. A verse we could say about inclusivity and in community, but also about developing individual potential for the community, not for ourselves. And now, as we've said, we would like to characterize three main challenges of our time. And we know that the three big crises that we are faced with are, on the one hand, the corona pandemic, the COVID pandemic, but that has, in a way, taken precedence or taken center stage, we can say, as opposed to the previous crisis, which is still very, very current, which is climate change. And in a way, the whole question and challenge, catastrophe, we could say, of climate change, the devastating situation has almost been sidelined through the pandemic. But it is equally a pressing need of our time, and it is equally critical that we approach this crisis in the right way, find new ways in order to sustain the earth that nourishes us. So those two, climate change, the corona pandemic, and third of all now, the social injustice which is raging through the world. And the situation is worldwide. We all are experiencing these current situations. And so we are all in a way together in this, which on the one hand is a comfort, on the other hand highlights the challenge. And I think what I've tried to do for this talk is to characterize these three main challenges, and bring them into particular concepts which we can try and work with. And the first one is balancing personal rights and social responsibilities. We find ourselves in a tension field between what are my personal rights, which I'm going to stand for and I'm going to go and demonstrate for if necessary, and what are social responsibilities where I am part of the community, part of the society and the culture, and need to stand for that, carry that responsibility. Then how do I balance the state requirements, the laws, the restrictions, the demands from the state, which are very often they seem to be not relating to the facts, they seem to be incohesive, they seem to be inconsequent. How do we comply to these state requirements and at the same time not lose our civilian initiative, that each one of us has the possibility of acting out of our own responsibility? And third of all, how do we use the digital media, which we are forced to use now, as a tool and not as a distraction or as a problem? So we would like to look at these things today in brief, and then I would like you to discuss them among yourselves, that really this is a co-working workshop and not just a presentation from me. And therefore, I would like us first to start with a little exercise which engages all of you, where all of you are brought into actually stepping into this platform, stepping into this room of exploration, of inquiry, on your own terms and in your own context. So my first question to you is, and we can't discuss this because we haven't got an open forum at this point, but just for yourself, when did you last experience a real encounter? When did you experience a real encounter? Can you just think about that for a moment? And then when you've got that, when you've identified what was a real encounter, a real meeting, a real engagement or interaction with another human being, then what were the conditions that made such an encounter possible? So, when did you experience a real encounter, and what were the conditions that made such an encounter possible? Just a few minutes to really go into that, each one of you, please. Okay, maybe we can come back. And I can't ask you now to give some feedback, but I'm hoping that we will come back to this in what I have to offer, and also then in the breakout rooms when you can discuss the questions which Victor will pose to us. Real encounters, what are the conditions for real encounters, and how are these sabotaged or compromised through the fact that we have now, we are experiencing spatial and social distancing? Where do we meet truly and really when we're not allowed to be close to each other, not allowed to hug each other, not allowed to teach in rooms together or have meetings together and in close proximity? Can we meet and have real encounters via this digital media? Is that possible? And if so, what are the conditions for such conversations or such processes that make it possible to still have real encounters? This is what we would like to look at. And my thesis is, I would like to just state this, that social and spatial distancing are counterproductive to human well-being and development. social and spatial distancing are counterproductive to human well-being and development. And this is what we are all experiencing. Isolation, fear and anxiety for an unknown future, emotional inability to express ourselves because we can't meet people and pour out our heart and have real heart-to-heart conversations. We don't know what the economic impact of the future will be. We don't know what the future is going to be. We don't even know next year whether we can all come back to school and teach in the right way. We don't know whether we can travel the world and meet at conferences. Apart from the fact that climate change is also changing and disrupting the crops, and our whole survival on Earth is in question, is threatened by the global climate change. So we are facing a situation of anxiety and of unpredictable future, and yet we are asked to stand in there, each one of us, to stand as teachers in front of our classes, to be examples to the parents, to interact with one another as colleagues, be it through this media, through an online media. But we are challenged to be human. We are challenged to be more human than ever before because of the fear and the anxiety and the unpredictability of the world around us. But what does this mean to be really human? What are these qualities? And I said, and this first topic that we wanted to look at is we are facing social responsibilities and personal rights, this tension field. And how do we step into that? For example, in Germany at the weekend, last weekend in Berlin, there was a big demonstration of all the German people who, and these are middle-aged people, not just the younger people, but more the middle-aged groupings of people who refused to wear masks. They say, we all know that it's ineffective. We don't want to hide behind a mask and cover ourselves up. It is particularly the face-to-face encounter, a meeting of another human being, which is important now in this challenging time. We need to meet as human beings. We refuse to wear masks. So that there was that demonstration. Is that responsible? Is that fair to the state who is trying to navigate through this crisis? And is it fair to our other human beings, our co-inhabitants in a city or in a village, that we say we have the right not to wear masks and therefore we won't? Whether that endangers another person or not is beside the point. It's my right not to wear a mask. This is this one aspect which can be one-sided of personal rights. The other side is social responsibility. Do we do everything which the state demands and penalizes us if we don't? Do we just blindly follow what, if we look into the situation, is actually quite obviously unnecessary, obviously incoherent and inconsequent? Do we still play along with that? And in a way, we find ourselves in the situation that both are necessary. Both I need to know my personal rights and stand up for them, and I also need to carry social responsibility and adhere to the law and order if I don't want to be punished. I, for example, am sitting now for 10 days in my flat and I haven't got any symptoms. There's no reason why I shouldn't go outside, and yet I could be penalized with 10,000 Swiss francs. So am I just going to duck and stay in my flat? Yes. And the thing is that both of these situations make us unfree. We are unfree because we blindly follow the system, but we are also unfree because we stick doggedly to our personal rights. And my challenge to us is today, how do we shift this? Can we not, in terms of personal encounters, and we realize that this impacts deeply on personal and real encounters, can we find ways of meeting and caring without disregarding the state restrictions? How can we care for our own personal rights, but the rights of another person as well? How can we meet each other with such interest and such care that we are prepared to overrule our own sense of what is my right for the sake of others? And in terms of our encounters with parents and with students and with our colleagues, are we able to reach out to them and meet their overwhelm and their anxious behavior and understand where that's coming from, and recognize that only through the real meeting and real interest and warmth and care can we actually shift the anxiety into its proper place. So my challenge to us is, and now this is going into balancing state requirements and civil initiatives, can we shift our perspective radically? In other words, turn it around completely and recognize that being unfree, both in our fixation on our personal rights and being a victim to the state, to the sometimes random restrictions and unfounded restrictions, can we reverse this whole approach that we kind of are lulled into or find ourselves in naturally, reverse it in such a way that we don't say, I'm looking after my personal rights and I have to adhere to social responsibilities, but to say, can I take on personal responsibility for the social rights of the environment I live in? So no longer this tension field of my personal right versus the social responsibility, which I am unfree and have to adhere to, but I want to carry personal responsibility for the social rights of my colleagues, of my pupils, of my society around me. Can I be my own chairman? As says Ruth Cohen, she was the founder of Theme-Centered Interaction. And she says, and she asks, what am I as a human being able to contribute to my neighbors and to the situation, the context in which I live? So it's not so much what do I need and what do I deserve and what are my rights, but what have I got in abundance which I can offer? So twist it around, not what are my needs, what are my possibilities, what is my abundance that I can offer to the current situation? And not the social responsibility I have to adhere to, but what are the rights of the others which I would like to see and meet and acknowledge? And we can ask, okay, so how do I do this? Sounds nice, but how do I take this up? How do I really work with this? How do I change an attitude and an approach to life completely in myself, particularly with our question of real meetings? I could say, how do I change my approach and attitude to other human beings? That I don't see them as a threat anymore, that I don't see them as in danger of infection, that I don't see them as people who are not abiding by the rules who I'm going to tell tales on, split on. But how do I see my neighbors, my colleagues, my students, the parents in their anxiety and see that they have the right to be respected? They have the right to be acknowledged, honored. They have the right to be recognized, each and every one, as a spiritual individual, as a spiritual being with a unique individuality, with a unique set of potentials which they perhaps haven't even explored or don't know themselves. How can I go beyond what I see and meet through my colored glasses which are colored by my assumptions, by my prejudices, by my experiences of another? How can I break through that and find an attitude and approach of interest, warmth, acknowledgement? And these are the qualities, I think, which are particularly characteristic of our time and needed in this time of crisis. And I would like to suggest that these are three qualities which we can really try to unpack and to look at. The first is warmth, coming from interest. Warmth or interest. What is this capacity of warmth? And in any of the scientific fields, whether it's medicine, whether it's agriculture, whether it's education, human development, whether it's psychology, whether it's physics, chemistry, all of these academic fields know the quality and recognize the potency or the power of warmth. Warmth as the dissolver, as the integrator, as the merger, as the enabler, we could say. And in our social interactions, on a soul level, human being to human being, warmth is the medium in which the I, the individuality, grows and develops. Warmth is also the medium in which human beings can truly meet. This is one of the qualities, I would say, which is key, a foundation, a prerequisite to a real meeting, is soul warmth. And what does warmth do? It expands, it opens. Anybody who knows a little bit about physics knows that. It expands and opens us. When the sun comes out, and we in Africa, we know that so well. And here in Europe, now today is a beautiful day. It's almost like an African sky, blue sky here, which isn't very common. And yet everybody responds to that through opening up, through smiling, through expanding their soul capacities. And this is the same with interest. If I look and see another human being with interest and with acceptance, then I open the space of a real meeting. We'll come to just now, what does this mean for digital media? How do I do that now in this particular situation where we are online with each other? Is that possible? We'll look at that in a minute. The second quality, capacity I'd like to really explore a little bit is acknowledgement or appreciation. What does it do to me to know that I'm acknowledged, that I'm appreciated? And how do I experience that somebody else appreciates me and acknowledges me? And Ruth Cohen and the people who work with interaction between people, who study dialogue, who study conversation, who study real meetings of people, true meetings, they all say that acknowledgement or appreciation is a key human attribute which is necessary for every human being for their well-being, their beingness and their well-beingness. We need to be acknowledged. We need to be heard. We need to not be overlooked, but to be seen, to be heard, to be acknowledged in our individuality, in our uniqueness. But what is this demand of us in terms of a meeting, an encounter? It means that I need to acknowledge the difference of another, the otherness, that part of the other which I can't understand, which I probably never will understand. And to accept, part of acknowledgement of another is to accept this opacity of soul, that I've got parts in my soul which are opaque. That means parts which are not transparent, which I will never be able to penetrate fully, and therefore there are dark spots in my soul. I am limited in my soul, in my viewpoint, in my understanding. And if I'm asked to meet somebody with interest and to acknowledge them in their individual capacity, in their uniqueness, it asks of me to acknowledge my difference, that part of me which is limited, and to acknowledge their otherness to me, which will remain other. I don't need to convince them of my thoughts because my thoughts are limited. I don't need to preach to them because they have their whole scope of experiences and knowledge themselves. And how do these two very different beings meet and acknowledge one another in their differences? That is a capacity of human interactivity which is so necessary today. And a third element which I would like us to look at is sensing into the other, being able to integrate aspects of the other which are different, as I said to myself. So this process of integrating differences, or we could say, can we create a warmth space in an encounter where through the acknowledgement of the differences, of the otherness, we can open a space which can contain new ideas, new thoughts, even intuition, we can say, aspects which I never have thought of before. Can we create and integrate and sense something new which will change me through this interaction with another person? And how do I engage and understand another human being? How do I look with interest and recognize another human being with warmth? Open that space for warmth. How do I listen and hear into another person's tone of voice, another person's wording that they have chosen, another person's expression of their thinking, their thoughts, with appreciation and acknowledgement? And how do I engage and understand the other with the potential, with the possibility of integrating something new, which I've never thought of before? That means that I need to, of course, be prepared to let go of my level of thought, my ideas, my preconceived ideas, my preconceptions, my level of knowledge. So these are the qualities of real encounter, which I'm sure you've all experienced and which you know so well. And yet, how do these fit into our digital system, our digital media? How can this online teaching, how can these online experiences like we're having right now, how can we use these as a tool rather than as a distraction? Because I think we are all aware that on the one hand, we are forced into online teaching. We are forced into having workshops like this, where we can't meet in person, but where we can meet 75 people from different countries all over the world, well, all over Africa at this point, but there are a couple of people also from Asia who have joined us. How can we meet truly? How can we have real encounters on this platform? Is it possible? And on the one hand, we can doubt that and we can say, this is not what we've signed up for. This is not what the teaching that we want to do. On the other hand, we are also experiencing that actually many of us can now stay in touch with each other far more regularly and far more actively than we could otherwise. And how about having one of these workshops every month to interconnect our experiences, whereas otherwise we can get together at the very most once a year, and even then not everybody can come to a conference. In this way, we can meet and share far more often. And I think the reality is that the virtual digital world has taken control of our lives. From communication, child education, adult training, even shopping and conversations with family and friends, everything is happening online now. Is that distracting from personal encounters? Yes, to a point, of course it is. How do we then use this media? How do we change again a paradigm shift within ourselves to actually be able to penetrate through these limitations, the limitation of the screen, the limitation of the technology, to actually meet the individuality of another person? Is that possible? And we can say also in terms of our teaching, is it possible for the children to gain the skills, develop the skills that they can learn online for as long as they have to? Of course, we don't want this to take precedence against face-to-face teaching and real experiencing, where we can see the whole body and read the body language, because we can't like this. but how can we shape our teaching in such a way and shape our communication and our workshopping in such a way that we can still really meet each other in the best possible way? And here I would like us to explore this. If we've spoken about warmth and acknowledgement and understanding as three primary capacities, can we look at this? How do we work with this digital media? How do we engage with inner warmth and interest in such a conversation? How do we open a space of real meeting in the breakout rooms, which you have now, and create a visual field? This goes back to our last workshop where we talked about three main sensory fields: the visual field, the auditory, hearing, listening space, and a space of touching, we said, where we are touching into the beingness of another. How do we explore this now in the digital platforms? So how do I meet and see every individual? I can read your faces, but your names don't tell me very much. And when we break out into rooms just now, we will hopefully all have our cameras on so that we can actually see our faces and see each other speaking. But what kind of attention and focus, personal attention, personal focus, personal presencing does it ask of us to truly show my individuality? Or we can say, this word presence in English has got a beautiful counterpart in German. It's called Geistesgegenwart. It means spiritual presence. And the spirit, says Rudolf Steiner, and we trust him, can't penetrate through technology. But the I, maybe the I, the inner I, the higher self, that spiritual self of the human being, can also not penetrate through technology. But my present attention, my present awareness can penetrate, can bring me as close to you through the screen as possible, through being totally present, first of all. Second of all, through preparing myself inwardly for this meeting. So one of the challenges, I think, which we can have as teachers and parents and colleagues in order to meet our children in the right way through this digital media is, how do we prepare ourselves? Do I prepare myself with my own inner contemplative, reflective, or meditative work? Do I bring myself to such a point within my own being that I can be fully present and fully acknowledging of the presence of another? In other words, can I deepen my own soul nature to such a point that I can sit in my authenticity, that I can be completely calm and present and aware of myself, my own prejudices, my own assumptions, my own reactivity, and at the same time sit quietly within that, knowing that, but going beyond it, not allowing that to rule me and to program me, even though I acknowledge and I know that I'm limited, that I am reactive, that I do have assumptions, but to rise above that, to step up, to step beyond that, and to try to meet the other pupils, all the students that I meet, all the colleagues that I meet, the parents that come and ask for advice, to meet them out of this prepared inner space, out of my spiritual authenticity as far as I've developed that. So that's the first one. Can I build a space of warmth, engage with inner warmth, having prepared that space, and open this visual field in a way of beholding beyond just the surface of what I'm seeing? So not just read the body language that I can only see in the facial expressions, but actually try to sense into the real being of the other human being through their words, through their presence, through their eyes, through whatever I can see, penetrate through this media. The second one, listening into the needs of the students, this one of acknowledging. How do I use this quality of acknowledgement, of recognition, of appreciation by listening, really listening into the needs of the students? In other words, opening this field of listening. Create a listening space. So creating a warmth space, a visual space is the first one. Creating a listening space. And what does that ask of me? Where we said the first one asks of me to prepare the space before I enter it. In other words, through my meditations, through my inner practice, find that groundedness in my authenticity. The second now, listening, creating a listening space means that I need to take myself aside, take a lateral position within my own consciousness. In other words, open a space of hearing, open a space which welcomes the other into my field of experience, a listening space, taking something of the other into me. How do I do that when I'm teaching online? How do I do that now? It's very difficult to listen into something which I can't hear, but I can try to feel, sense my way into, are you understanding my words? Are they coming across, particularly when I stop and I search for a word? Is that disruptive, or can you follow my train of thought? Can I incorporate you into and take you with me in my train of thought? That's partly this opening to a listening space. And then this third one is this meeting space of integrating something new. How can I sense and meet the being of another which is so different to me, which I don't know, can't fathom perhaps, and create a field of affirming the differences, saying yes. Even if I don't understand you fully, I say yes to you as a being, because you deserve that, and you too are a spiritual being with all your experiences and all your abundance that you bring into this moment of meeting. So affirming and understanding the other, integrating new aspects, new understanding. How do we do this? And once I can acknowledge and affirm the difference between us, this creative space of encounter may allow new ideas, as we said before, a space of intuition, we could say, to come about. A space which I can't control, which I can't direct. And we know this from teaching. We prepare our lessons, but then we have to enter into an intuitive moment, an intuitive space in the classroom to allow what comes from the children to actually meet what I have brought. And if I don't doggedly stick to my plan, we can have the most incredible intuitions and new ideas which can emerge out of this meeting space in a classroom. And how do we do that here with an online platform? Is it possible? Can we, in a way, go slow? Can we allow the children to express themselves, to find new ways of expressing themselves? That we need to find new skills of reading into, sensing into the very limited sense perception that we can have on the screen. How do we do that? And this brings us then to the questions, and I'm proud to say, Victor, that I'm sticking to the time, I think. So I would like to, shall I read the questions, Victor, and just explain them a little bit?
Please. Yes, please. Yeah.
So when we go into the breakout rooms, I've listed these 3 questions coming out of what I've tried to describe this afternoon. First of all, how do I personally experience the current change in the social interactions? So what has changed? And I've said a couple of things. What are the limitations? What are the possibilities? What has changed in this interactive space that we have now, or that we don't have now? What are the real changes which we are experiencing, which we are faced with, but also within ourselves? How am I changing inwardly or needing to change to meet this current situation in terms of interactivity? Second of all, what are the assumptions that I carry regarding the engagement with students, parents, and other adults in general? So what are the assumptions that I carry regarding the engagement? What do I expect? What do I take as non-negotiable with regard to an interaction with a student, with regard to an interaction with my colleagues or with the parents? What are my assumptions, and are they still relevant and real? Can I still hold on to these assumptions? For example, that the parents show up to a meeting, or that the student does his homework. Perhaps he hasn't understood anything. Or in my meeting with a student, that he shows respect and sits and listens to me on this from his perspective when he's sitting in his room at home. What are our assumptions? Can we clearly list our assumptions and then question, are these still relevant? And thirdly, what are the qualities that I have to offer in an interpersonal encounter? Not what are my needs, but what is the abundance that I have to offer in a situation, particularly this perhaps compromised or potential situation or new situation of learning how to encounter people. Is that clear? Shall we end with a verse? Maybe we end with the verse right at the end.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Joansley. We are right on track. We have actually, you had 1 more minute, so thank you so much for utilizing the time so effectively. Kali, I think we are ready for the breakout rooms.
Okay, everyone, I'm going to open all the rooms, and there will be a big bang and a crash, and you'll turn up in a little breakout room, and then I'll give you a 5-minute countdown when it's time to come back. Thanks.
From the different breakout groups, and you are starting with us. So over to you, Sylvia. You have 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Group 1 had quite an exciting discussion. And what came up in the first question, in terms of the experiences with the current changes, we sort of came to a place where we agreed that it has been a journey. And on this journey, people discovered different things. And some of the things that came up were how many lost opportunities there were previously, and things that had been given to us were taken for granted. And that realization was very much there with the change. But on the other side of it, there were new possibilities and opportunities presented. The second thing that came up was that a lot of polarities came up, feelings of joy, of anger, of sorrow, of happiness, all in one. But then because it's a journey, it kept getting better and better. There was the question of being faced with online classes and that being really challenging as part of the change. And a lot of appreciation then came up for when people were tired before and they had to take care of children physically and deal with sense impressions. But there was such appreciation for those times in realizing how challenging it was to work online. In the same journey, a lot of people found they were drawn in, and they had to find and listen to that inner voice that was coming up. In the change, there was a lot of fear, both from within and from without. There was the not knowing what's going on with the children, because when they were here and now, people could immediately connect, but now without even an online connection for some of the schools, it's just an emptiness, a not knowing. There was also a jumping to perfection and wanting to make it great. And in everything that everyone was dealing with, it was the children who stood out. A lot of concern for the children. But then in the same breath, there's these assumptions that we carry as we come to meeting the children, their parents, and other colleagues and adults in general. And some of the assumptions that came up were things like feeling bothered, that anytime someone communicates, they are bothering. There was assumptions about being limited. So the fact that it's online, it's already limited. There was assumptions about everyone being infected. So anyone you met was infected and one had to be really careful. There was assumptions about already questioning that it won't work. Nothing is going to work with COVID. It's all finished. But then we also realized the assumptions were not only coming up with the situation of isolation now and the social distance and physical distance. It's probably assumptions that we carried all along, but were escalated by virtue of being separate from each other, by virtue of having that space to really connect to that inner voice that was calling. Other assumptions were everyone is unhappy. So if there were people feeling unhappy that they were isolated, then everyone else must be feeling this way. And then everyone must be in the same boat. Assumptions of caution around everything, that nothing is safe anymore. Everything one has to handle with caution. And then there was assumptions that it would go on as usual. And there were people who were caught feeling very helpless, especially when they had to work with the students online, from the assumption of hoping or telling themselves that it would go on as usual. But what's been very clear is that these assumptions are carried somewhere in the subconscious anyway. And it's also been agreed upon that these assumptions do not serve us anymore in terms of moving forward, creating new encounters, and finding this interpersonal relationship and finding new ways of connecting. So what abundance, what qualities must we bring forth to be able to put aside our assumptions or quieten our assumptions? And the group was a bit like popcorn with this one. They just came up very quickly. So there was calm, flexibility. Yeah, I'm winding up. Calm, flexibility, trust, being authentic with themselves, being appreciative, confident, open-minded, accepting of the other, being positive, being understanding, having empathy for other and self, and having a strong self-esteem. So thank you for listening, and it's wound.
Thank you, Sylvia. Thank you for the feedback from the breakout room that you were leading. And now let's hear the discussions that took place in the room that was being led by James Olan. James Olan, you have 5 minutes. James?
Okay, I'm now out of mute. Thank you.
Yes.
Now, with regard to personal experiences, just realize that all the members that were in that group, a lot of their attention was on the things that they are going to do towards helping the learners. And one thing that came in so much was that while they were preparing for the next lesson, the question they kept asking themselves is, did they do better for the learners? Or did they shortfall of what they're used to doing in the classes? But then you realize that the feedback is not as prompt as it is when you have the learners in front of you, where you can see their faces, their body language, as opposed to the online work. So you find most of the time they will repeat and repeat and repeat to ensure that it sinks into the learners. And as Jenna says, repetition strengthens the will. So probably they didn't know whatever they were doing there was an assertion to what is supposed to be going on in the life of the learners. Then there came a time of time frame. Being online is limited to availability of power, internet connection, just not just for the teacher, even for the learners on the other side. And the time you spend with the learners online looks relatively short compared to when you have them physically right in front of you. And the young ones, especially kindergarten, primary, age 5, 6, are the most affected because you find their attention span on the screen is not as those that are of the senior classes. So it becomes different as opposed to real meetings where one gets to engage the young ones at the front. Then the other issue was the technological challenge. Not all the schools were prepared with the machines to empower this online. And if you leave the school, even the parents themselves, the financial muscle to be able to put up this resource in the shortest notice that nobody gave so that the learning can continue became a challenge. So things had a bit of slow in terms of speed. And then another thing that came through was if work is given, then that work can be reloaded to the learners as a video so that even when they are off the teaching time, they can still go back into the recorded audio video and they get to learn more out of it. The other challenge that came with question number 2, assumptions. Every teacher was assuming the children are having the machines, they're in front of their machines, as disciplined as they were in the classes. But now you find sometimes half or a third submit their work in good time. Some of them, they don't do the submission. And even the parents, at the beginning of this process, they were there with their children, shouldering on, helping each other, and also helping the teacher help the learner. But as things are beginning to water down in terms of restrictions, you find the children are left alone to operate the gadgets, and probably the parents have now left the house, and now they have gone to earn a living because it's no longer as strict measures as it was before. Then beg the question, what can we do to help the parents cope with the situation, especially from the teacher, the child, towards the learning, not their general cooperation, cooperating with the work that is being given to the children. Then the last question was the abundance, the things that we can do so that these encounters become better. And we found out that in each one of us, there is a gift that we can always be able to give out. Like you can gather together, share some cooking experience. You can have some nature walk with the people who are around you. You can play some games. And that way, whatever is in you is able to be given out unto the others. And by so doing, they appreciate you as you appreciate them back. Like John said, warmth and interest into the other person. Like in physics, it has expansion and openness. So we were into doing activities of nature that we are interested in to the people that are around us. That way you find everybody gets to cope with the situation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, James, and for the feedback from your group. You've done very well to stick to about 4 minutes, roughly. I think let's now move on to the group that was led by Bruce Jackson. Bruce, over to you.
Thank you, Victor. I think I can say from a point of view myself that it's difficult to have a discussion group when you're sitting watching a screen. I don't quite know how James and Sylvia got their groups motivated, but I was less successful, put it that way. I didn't write down everything that I had said because I didn't think that was the relevance. But basically, yeah, we started off by sort of looking at most of the older children anyway are used to social media. Most adults are used to social media. Had this all started 25 years ago, we wouldn't have had the same ability to communicate with the screen. We do have these meetings, non-physical meetings, all the time with Facebook and all the other media that we have around. So jumping into something like Google Classroom isn't that new for the older children and for the adults. For the younger children, it's something completely new. But yeah, moving into the questions, the first question, how do I personally experience the current changes? Talking about the fact that the structure and the routine are totally different. You don't go and sit in your car and drive for half an hour or an hour to get to school and then stay there, do your lessons, move from one classroom to another. You're sitting behind your computer potentially all day. There's no need to travel. It's a strange difference, yeah? You don't have to think about, yeah, have I got to get up an hour earlier? When have I got to get there? Is there going to be traffic on the road? So all that is gone. But when you are outside, the fear is still there. The fear is not maybe quite as strong here as it is in other countries, but you maybe do get a chance to sit next to somebody, or you're conversing with somebody and you just don't know, has he or she actually got COVID-19? So there's this fear there all the time, and you can't do much about that. And we talked a bit about the fact that the fear level is very different in different countries. But in Kenya, basically, the only real problem you have is that you have to wear a mask and they are not allowed to go out after 9 o'clock. In other countries, the restrictions are much more severe. Then on question number 2, what are the assumptions and so on? Yeah, you just don't know, are the students actually interested? You can't tell in the way that you can normally. Normally, you can be looking at all the children. You can be having them all somehow in your eyesight as an experienced teacher, but you can't do that. You can't tell whether they're interested. You can't tell whether they're really secretly somewhere completely different with their thoughts. You can't even tell if there's maybe somebody the other side of their screen who they're looking at, and you can't have any idea really whether they're interested. If they turn their cameras off, and I'm afraid a lot of my students like doing that, you just don't even know whether they're still sitting there. So how is it for the students? You just don't know. And yet, is there any similarity to teaching in the real sense? You know, you can teach, I'm a physics teacher, amongst other things, but obviously for teaching physics, you can't teach physics through a computer. You can tell people to look at videos, but you can't go and actually do an experiment, or at least you can, but it's not the same thing. You can't do hands-on teaching, no hands-on experiments at all. But yeah, the question we asked, and maybe perhaps the only one that we discussed a little bit, yeah, do people really know what's happening? What's it going to be like for the younger children, having had, not so much in Kenya, but I mentioned a situation, a friend of mine is in Spain, and in Spain they were on lockdown for 2.5 months, and this friend happens to have a 3-year-old daughter, and this 3-year-old daughter, what on earth does she think is happening? She's not allowed out for 2.5 months. It's a totally different situation. Do people really know what's happening? And that was the question 2. Question 3, we dried up almost completely. What qualities do I have to offer in interpersonal encounters? And basically, we just spoke a little time about, are people willing to deal with this technology? How can we deal with the technology? We have different problems now than we do when we're on the road. As I say, traffic jams and stuff. When we're actually on screen, we have the problem, are we going to have, like James had earlier on, are we going to have a power cut? Are we going to be unable to carry on teaching? And are the kids going to stay there for long enough? So yeah, I've rabbited on for long enough. Victor's told me I've only got a minute, so I shall let somebody else have that minute. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bruce, and thank you for observing time also. Let's hear from the breakout group that was led by Mary Mwaneki. Mary Mwaneki.
Thank you so much, Victor. When we looked at the experiences, first we didn't know how much what we carry. Like, you know, you are in the house, there's a lot to juggle, being at home, being a mother, being a father, and these are the children. So we saw like people really got to know themselves, that they have a lot of capabilities that they can juggle even at home and at school. There's something Joanne talked about, and it came in our group, Like when you are not able to meet physically, there's a lot of misunderstanding. Sometimes something is happening wherever you are sitting and somebody was saying something. You might just make a facial expression, not because of they've said something, but then they literally take you wrong because they can't really see you or understand where you are coming from. And there was something about anxiety. Like no one seems to know what's happening next. You know, like no one knows. Like in the whole world, when we are at a this standstill thing, no one knows what happens next. So the anxiety, do we wake up tomorrow and we are told, no, you can't even leave your own house? Do you wake up and you are told, I don't know, do this? So there's a lot of anxiety, helplessness, when even like the people you look up to, they are also helpless. They are also looking for somewhere else to get the help from. And the other challenge that we looked at, and especially the lower ages, especially the kindergarten, when you are like giving instructions on what to do, and the parents are there competing, you know, like they want to do it for their children. So it's like a competition of the parents who did it well. And whereas for the teacher, it's the continuity of learning. There's no perfection. The children are allowed to give out their best. So it's also a very, like something that we did not, see it coming, but you get to see like there's a lot of competition in the class. And the other assumption, now the question number 2, the assumptions. We assume that children are doing right. At what age? You know, you can't really see them, but you assume they are doing right. But when you ask them what they did, they really did nothing. They were like maybe playing with the gadgets. It's a new thing to all of us. Sometimes you like, your mind goes and you just trying to click onto some things. And expectations from the parents, you know, they're at home as we are at home also. So they log in into the classrooms and they get to what their expectation, maybe it's your expectation. So you get to see a lot of comparison. They compare teacher A with teacher B, like you did not even do right. We assumed like everything is going to run normally. And another thing we assumed, not all parents are teachers. So sometimes they are clueless on what we are doing. So at some point, they get frustrated and they pour the frustrations to the teachers. And there's also another assumption. I don't know if it's a challenge or an assumption. When the child is in class, the parent is sending them to do something. You get to see they did not do their work, but they ended up doing something in the house. And we have also, we talk about rhythm in the Waldorf kindergarten. You've created a rhythm to be used at home, but you get to see the parents have a different rhythm. So when you are presenting your weekly planner or the termly planner, the parents are really not following the weekly rhythm that you have followed, and that becomes a challenge. And when we looked at question number 3, qualities, I'll just read. Being conscious and active listener to meet the other person through the food. You know, sometimes we are not conscious because you are not being there, but it's something that really struck us. Being patient with adults as the children we teach. Being kind to others. Appreciating the other person. Empathy, conscious, and place ourselves with other person's shoes, and having a positive attitude towards everything, everyone, even the gadgets we use. Sometimes there's internet breaking out, you know, there's a lot of things. So if we have a positive mind when we wake up that everything will run out well, then everything goes on well. That was our group.
Thank you so much, Mary, and for sticking to time also. You used about 4 minutes. Let's hear from the group that was led by Faith Wambua. Faith?
Thank you, Victor. I will not repeat some of those that have already been said, but I will mention. Now, in our group, we started off with the position of the things that we have always taken for granted. The hugs, the handshake at the door with the child. Sometimes we even hugged our friends. When someone was giving you a hug, you're looking elsewhere, you know, because that's normal. You'll have another hug anyway tomorrow and all of that. And and the hugs we got from the children, all that we have always been taking for granted now was no more. So that was actually the first change that most of the teachers, most of us who are teachers in there, were experiencing, that personal human interaction was gone. And now we had to watch each other on the screen and, have the distance from wherever we were at. Now, the physical has changed. Therefore, the open sharing has somehow taken a step back. That sharing openly, the chatting, the teasing each other, and all of that no longer happens as easily as it used to. Look at us here, we are taking caution as we are speaking because there's a bit of a distance. So the gadget is coming in between that physical engagement with each other. Now, being human, we are always hopeful, we are always visualizing, we are always planning, we are always organizing ourselves. Next week, I will be traveling to Nanyuki. Next week, Sylvia, let's have a cup of tea. We are always planning and all of that, but that was taken away from us. And we are left suspended, hanging, because we don't know what will be announced tomorrow. We don't know when school resumes. Someone is holding that away from us. So we are waiting for them to speak. We swing this way, they swing that way, we swing that way. So we are somewhere left suspended. And that was a major change in ourselves and leaving us a little bit of, helpless beings, waiting for the government's instructions and all of that. Then came the virtual work that threw all of us, most of us teachers, in the deep end. We are used to the blackboard, we're used to interacting with each other and the children, and then we had to swim in the deep end with all the virtual work, gadgets breaking down, you have to sort it out, power blackouts and all of that. So the technical hitches that left the children frustrated, that was all again new. The teacher is frustrated, the child is frustrated, the parent is frustrated. So all these coming together. But then there was hope also in hearing how other schools have already returned back and are physically in school together. That has given hope to those who are still at home and working virtually. But then there was still there was a joy of coming together physically. But then there were the screens coming in between the physical. And now the child could not understand why we are here. So why the screen, why the mask and all of that. And again, so those limitations, bringing another way of being able to work together as human beings. The child being told, no, please keep on your mask and all of that. So those are new to us. And therefore, in a kind of conclusion, we saw that as we work towards like returning to school or doing away with the huge physical distancing where we are working with the gadgets, then we have to work at thinking about how to help with the children with the psychosocial support. How do they work with creating resilience in being able to be aware and to be able to relate with each other again and continued work with the social distancing. Then we moved on to question number 2 with the assumptions. And here with the assumptions, we talked about the learners and the adults and the parents. First, the teacher assumed that, the child will actually adapt immediately from physical interaction in the class to the gadget, and they will just roll with it. So there was that assumption that the child will easily pick that up and carry on. And so did we also assume that the parents would actually become co-teachers, that when we assign the task, the parent will actually help with explaining that further in our absence. So those were assumptions that we started, we took on, that the child will understand the gadget. We also assumed that the other on the other side is actually happy as I am, or the other on the other side is coping as well as I am. My colleague on the other side is actually capable of handling the gadgets as well as I am. So there were those assumptions and that we directed to each other and expected that the other would be able to pick that up quite easily. Then came the qualities. What is it that I have to offer? What quality do I bring?
Faith, I mean, wind up.
Okay, then there was reassurance. We have to reassure the children that they are safe. We have to create a safe space for them to bring out or come out and speak up. We have to assure them that it is well and all will be well even when we get back to work. Then we also have to organize ourselves better in being able to communicate well, to communicate whatever it is that we have to bring forth to the children or to the other person on the other side. We also had to be able to be patient and read the other's behavior even on the screen, because that behavior could be the vehicle they are using to deliver their message to them. So we need to think and look through and be able to appreciate the other person's behavior and remain receive them with warmth and care and patience to be able to understand them on the other side. Well, I think I have captured most of it in just that the short minutes. And thank you for the team as well.
Okay, thank you so much, Faith. Much appreciated for all the group leaders and for the group discussions that took place in the breakout rooms. We now have a very short time to go back to Joanne Slee for about 5 minutes to allow her room to just conclude her thoughts. Over to you, Joanne Slee. 5 minutes for you, Joanne Slee.
Thank you very much, Victor. And thanks to everybody, particularly also the organizers and those of you who made this possible. We invited everybody and who kept the reminders going, and also to Kali, of course, to organize this also superbly. It's an honor to work with you, and I feel deeply touched that we can meet in this way, even though this isn't face-to-face meeting, and yet I feel that somehow we are meeting. How to go on from here, I would like to get feedback from you, because we are experimenting this together. We all have to learn this new way of interacting with each other together. And there is no protocol for this. There is no prototype for such meetings. And if we want to continue, and we have one more scheduled on the 30th of this month, 30th of September, one more meeting. And the topic which I had suggested was imagination, resilience. I think now we should look also at what Faith touched on at the end, when everybody comes back and we step back into, or allowed to step back into, so to speak, normal life. It can't go back to the normality that we were used to, because that can't be normal life. A life that destroys our planet, and a life that takes so many things for granted, and that doesn't really meet each other in the right human way, we can't call that our future. And I think we have a superb opportunity now to really reshape and rethink and redesign our lives. And my question to you is, I would really appreciate feedback of how do we shape such meetings? How do we shape such workshops? What do you need more of? The breakout room that I was in, it was difficult to enter into proper conversation. Why? Is it not the appropriate tool? Or how can we improve the tools? How can we improve the way that we work together? And how can we bridge now the time where the danger where we fall back into normality and miss the opportunity to really change and reshape things? How can we work with that? How can we take up the challenge and the opportunity to really reshape things? I would love to get your input on that, your suggestions on how we can work proactively together on this. And I think Africa has a huge potential of bringing real new insights and new aspects and new ways of working, particularly around warmth and humanism, real humanity into the world, into the global reality. So my request to you is, let's work together. And for that we need, or at least if you would like to work together, I'm very willing and very honored to work with you, but I need your input as to how we work together in the best possible way. I'm going to end with the verse And then I leave it to you, Victor, to close the session. The healthy social life is only found when, in the mirror of each human soul, the whole community finds its reflection, and when, in the community, the virtue of each one is living. So be it. Thank you, and go well.
Thank you so much, Joanne Slee. Joanne Slee has become a very good friend of the East Africa region. We are very grateful that you can be able to find time to share your thoughts with us. Very encouraging, very inspiring. And we tend to learn a lot and gain a lot from experiences with you. So we look forward to the next talk that will be offered by Joanne Slee. That's coming September 30th. So please calendar that on your diaries. We will be able to send out the flyer and all the information that you need to be able to get onto the talk. So thank you so much, Joanne Slee. I know we are very far and we are not all on the screen, but help me to appreciate Joanne Slee, please. That action alone is good enough. Thank you so much, Joanne Slee. Thank you. I also like to express a very huge thanks to the breakout session leaders, Faith Wambua, James Olang, Bruce Jackson, Sylvia Njagi, and Mary Mwaneki for leading the breakout sessions. These are also committee members that really help a lot when we are arranging this kind of talks. Please also let's appreciate the breakout leaders. Yeah. Very big appreciation to two people, the one who you could actually not be able to see a lot. That's the tech support team, Kali Gilbert Patrick and Jesse Ameldinga, both from a Nanyuki initiative and generally to the Nanyuki Waldorf initiative for providing the infrastructure that has enabled us to meet together in this way. Please let's appreciate them. Yeah. And to each and every one of you, to every single colleague who was able to join us today in the afternoon. I'll tell you what, this is turning out to be a beyond East Africa affair also. We were joined by colleagues from Singapore, a colleague from the States, if I'm not wrong, a colleague from Australia. So we are getting more and more colleagues joining the talks, and I think that's really, really encouraging. So to each one of you, thank you so much for being present today afternoon, and we look forward to being with you shortly, September 30th.
Victor, I just want to say thank you to you for moderating, keeping us all in check, doing a really good job. It's 1 or 2 minutes past 5. I don't know how anyone can do that. Well, I do. His name's Victor. Yeah, thank you, Victor. A bit of a clap for
thank you.
Victor.
Thank you so much, Bruce. Thank you so much, Bruce. Now, we are very far away from each other, but let's do one small thing to finish together. And that's, let's open our arms very wide, like that. Push it all the way back. Gather all the love that you can be able to gather. And let's bring all of that together and hold it, wrap it around there. And let's assume that we are wrapping it around each other. So that we can do that physically, but we can do that in this way. Yeah. Thank you so much, dear colleagues. Wishing you all a very good evening, wherever you are, a very good morning, a very good afternoon, from whichever location you joined us today, and looking forward to seeing you September 30th. Thank you, dear colleagues, and goodbye.
Thank you. Asante.
Thank you.